In the midst of death, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.
What we can do as the Interparliamentary Union to strengthen democracy, to promote human rights, to ensure that humanitarian law is respected.
UN Security Council needs a makeover, a comprehensive reform, and India deserves a position there, a role there.
Prime Minister Modi during Operation Sindoor made it amply clear that war has never been India's choice. We are with the side of peace. We are neither neutral nor indifferent. We are with peace.
We would have dealt with the U.S. a whole lot on trade and those kinds of things, and that's not as certain these.
Hello and welcome. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching the NewsX Eurozone. Let's take a check of the headlines this hour. Anti-corruption investigators raid Zelensky's chief of staff Yermak. He confirms Ukraine's anti-corruption agencies searched his home, says he is fully cooperating with investigators. Kremlin says Russia wants to try to move towards peace in Ukraine despite its belief that Ukrainian President Zelensky is illegitimate. US provides Russia with details of peace plan agreed on with Ukraine. Ukrainian President Zelensky says Kyiv holds daily consultations with international partners to counter Russia's war. He adds Ukrainian and US delegations will meet again to advance frameworks for peace and security guarantees. Belgium Prime Minister De Wever says using frozen Russian assets could derail Ukraine peace deal. European Union leaders failed to secure Belgium's backing at the last summit. PM warns of potential Russian retaliation and financial claims. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban says he is going to meet the Russian President Vladimir Putin Friday in Moscow for energy talks. Hungary, which is the Kremlin's closest ally in the European Union, still depends heavily on Russian gas and oil imports. German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier says he will visit Guernica, the Basque town devastated by a Nazi air raid during Spain's civil war, in one of the first modern air bombings of civilians. Israeli authorities review a deadly incident in Jenin, the West Bank, where IDF soldiers shot 2 men following surrender. Palestine condemns the killings as war crimes. European Union has called for a swift return to constitutional order in Guinea-Bissau and the resumption of the interrupted electoral process following a military coup. And viewers, let's move on to the top focus story this hour. Ukraine's National Anti-Corruption Bureau is conducting searches at the premises linked to President Zelensky's chief of staff, Andriy Yermak, as part of a major corruption investigation involving the state nuclear power company. Yermak is a powerful figure in Ukraine and is also a key participant in peace talks with the United States. Meanwhile, Chief of Staff Andriy Yermak says that he is fully cooperating with the investigators searching his home. The National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine and the Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office are Ukrainian anti-corruption watchdogs, and they are behind a major investigation into a $100 million energy sector corruption scandal involving top Ukrainian officials. 8 suspects have been charged in what is amounting to the most extensive corruption investigation since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion in early 2022. The investigation by the Anti-Corruption Bureau alleges that the ringleader and mastermind of the corruption scheme is businessman Timur Mendik, a former business partner of Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. And now joining us live on this bulletin into the discussion is Gilbert Doctorow, who's a Russia affairs expert, joining us live from Brussels. Extend you a very warm welcome, Mr. Doctorow, once again on NewsX World. How do you think the investigation is going to proceed against Yermak? He says he's cooperating, but also take us through some of the charges against him and the proceedings that are likely to follow.
Well, let us not be naive. The investigation of Yermak is a very political act, and we can be almost certain that it is enabled by the Trump administration. It is the Americans who saved that very body, the anti-corruption body, from being gutted by Mr. Zelensky. Yes, there were popular demonstrations against it, and yes, Mr. Zelensky had back away. And there were calls in the past week for investigation of Yermak in the Ukrainian parliament, the Verkhovna Rada. But behind it all is the United States. And as I said, they gave support to protect that body, and it is very convenient that Yermak is now being investigated, and we can be certain that he will be nailed. And if he is nailed, then Zelensky goes with him. So I think that the tenure of Mr. Zelensky and his whole bunch around him, tenure in office, is a matter of days now, not months.
Now, the scandal has also taken down two of Zelensky's ministers and also embroiled a former business associate of his. Do you think it's really going to weaken Zelensky's cause?
It won't weaken it, it destroys him. I don't believe he'll be in office because there was such a loud cry over the corruption scandal when these two ministers were relieved of their duties for skimming this $100 million in the energy sector. And that is nothing, that is child's play compared to what they are now going to find as they proceed to investigate Yermak.
All right, Mr. Doctorow, I request you to stay on with us as we move on to our next story. Now, viewers, the Kremlin has said that Russia still wants to move toward a peace process in Ukraine, even though it continues to view President Zelensky as illegitimate. Moscow also confirmed that the United States has now provided the key details of its refined peace plan, agreed in consultations with Ukraine and Geneva. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov says that those details will be discussed in Moscow next week, and President Putin has previously suggested the updated American plan could form a basis for negotiations. But on the ground, the fighting is still continuing. Ukraine's military says that it carried out a series of overnight strikes, including an attack on Russia's Saratov oil refinery, part of what Kyiv calls efforts to reduce Russia's military economic capacity. Ukrainian forces also reported hitting a drone storage site at the Saki airfield and several other military facilities. And let's bring back Mr. Doctorow into the discussion. Mr. Doctorow, we've been discussing time and again, almost on a daily basis, how what Russia says and does are completely contradictory, and there seems to be a paradox in speech and action. What's your opinion?
Well, I think that the big player today is not in Moscow. It is certainly not in Geneva. It is in Washington, D.C. And I think all of us, myself included, have vastly underestimated the ability, the duplicity of Mr. Trump and his ability to operate in a very hostile environment, both at home and abroad, to disrupt entirely the expectations of Mr. Zelensky and his backers in Europe. They are bringing down Mr. Zelensky, and that was unforeseeable. The efforts in Geneva with Mr. Yermak representing Ukraine, that was all play acting. It was when Mr. Trump said on the airplane, I was going down to Miami for the weekend of Thanksgiving, that the end is in sight. The Russians will take all of Donetsk in a matter of weeks or months. Ukraine will lose 50,000 dead over a pointless continuation of the war. That tells you where Mr. Trump really stands. And then you hear about this investigation into Yermak. It is clear as day. We are witnessing the last days of this war. And very likely there'll be, when Mr. Zelensky is removed, there'll be a Ukrainian capitulation.
All right, stay on with us, Mr. Doctorow. We have some information now coming in from Belgium, where Belgian Prime Minister Bart de Wever has warned the European Union that using frozen Russian state assets to fund Ukraine could jeopardize a potential peace deal in the nearly 4-year conflict. In a letter to European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, de Wever says that moving forward hastily on the proposed $162 billion reparations loan scheme risks preventing an eventual peace agreement. European Union leaders previously attempted to approve the plan at a summit last month, but Belgium, which holds a significant portion of the frozen assets, withheld support. De Wever also notes that Belgium has not yet seen any proposed legal language from the European Commission regarding the scheme. The European Commission aims to address Belgium's concerns in a draft legal proposal set to be presented this week, outlining the use of frozen Russian sovereign assets to support Ukraine in 2006 and 27. I want to get in an opinion from you, Mr. Doctorow, on this. Do you think the use of Russia's frozen assets is even viable to begin with?
There has been an attempt by the European Commission, headed by von der Leyen, to disguise essentially the confiscation of those assets by calling it a reparation loan and using these funds only as collateral. The Belgians understood the risks involved. Euroclear management also underlined the risks involved, since this is essentially transparent confiscation and it is illegal under international law. The risk to Belgium would be Russians would take them to court, would win in court, and Belgium would face a liability equal to 1/3 of its annual GDP. That, of course, in Belgium is totally unacceptable. This was the original argumentation that Mr. de Wever used. And yet, Madame von der Leyen, who is desperate to apply that fund, the $145 billion, euros, in the loan to Ukraine, which European countries themselves do not want to put up out of their taxpayer money. She was desperate to break down Mr. de Wever and to persuade him that the rest of the European Union will go along and provide the guarantees that he has requested. That is only her say-so. There is no evidence that the European 27 countries are willing to do that. But this is not the new development. What is stunning and shows unexpected and remarkable bravery of Mr. de Wever is the point that you've made at the start of this discussion. His introduction of a totally new issue in his refusal to go along with this scheme, and that is that that taking this money would be essentially damaging the chances of success for the ongoing peace talks. That is exactly what Madame von der Leyen wants. And he has called her out in public. That took bravery, considering that 24 out of 27 European member state heads of government are not particularly brave. They are totally conformist. It was exceptional that this little country of 12 million people in a European Union of 450 million people is holding up the train, and holding it up for the very good reason. Mr. de Wever is in unusually good position to show this bravery, because this week was a very good week for him and for Belgium. He passed the 2026 state budget for Belgium 1 month before it's due, and including important reforms to pension law, to unemployment compensation, and other social benefits that are highly contested and highly resented by the labor unions. And we had on Wednesday the biggest general strike in Belgium since the 1980s. And he won. Mr. De Wever won. He passed reforms that have been kicked down the road for 20 years. He has done what Mr. Macron in France could not do. And so with this unusual strength, he has proceeded to challenge directly von der Leyen. Remarkable day.
But essentially, now we also saw how without Belgium's backing, Europe will not be able to move forward on von der Leyen's proposal. Do you think it's possible that the European Union could go ahead without Belgium's backing at all?
Impossible. This is the property of Euroclear, which is in the Belgian jurisdiction. So the notion that she could reach over Belgium and take the money is excluded totally. The point is that there are alternatives, and Madam von der Leyen mentioned 3 possibilities when she spoke a week ago. One of them is raised by Mr. De Wever. Well, if you want to do this, you want to support Ukraine, then let's have a mutualized loan that is all member states of the European Union participate in it according to their financial wealth and population, and we will put up 45 billion to keep Ukraine afloat for 1 more year. That is what he's proposed, but he knows very well that the European Union member states do not want to do that. Germany is against any mutual loans, and in general, the European Union does not want to attack taxpayer funds to finance Ukraine. That was the whole charm of stealing the Russians' state assets. The European taxpayers wouldn't be paying, so they thought. In any case, this means there will be essentially no money from Europe of any significance going to Ukraine, which hastens the capitulation that we spoke about a few moments ago.
All right. Well, I thank you, Gilbert Doctorow, for joining us for now on News X World, and we hope to see you again. Viewers, with that, we move on. Now, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban has said that he is going to meet the Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow for energy talks. Hungary is the closest ally of Kremlin in the European Union, as it is still heavily dependent on Russian gas and oil imports, despite sanctions after Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022. Now, Orban has also said that he is going there to ensure Hungary's energy supply is secured for the winter and the following year at an affordable price. However, Orban has claimed that Hungary has the lowest energy price in Europe, thanks to its access to Russian gas and oil, which is cheap relative to international price levels. Since returning to power in 2010, Orban has met Putin 15 times, and this will be their 4th meeting since the start of the Russia-Ukraine war. And we now want to welcome Sander van Hoorne, who is a former European Union correspondent, joining us live from Amsterdam in Netherlands. I extend you a very warm welcome and thank you for joining us here at News X World. Could you primarily first help us understand Viktor's visit to Moscow? Of course, he's emphasized how it continues to benefit from the cheap Russian oil and gas prices. This has also been the case with other countries, including India, who maintain that they get the best deal from Russia as far as oil import is concerned. And that's also the line that Hungary now follows. What's your comment?
Well, Orban has multiple reasons to keep using Russian oil. One is strategic, not being too dependent on the European Union and being the thorn in the side of the European Union, so it benefits his negotiation position in the side of the EU. But it also has a very practical reason, especially when it comes down to the use of Russian crude oil. It's not only where the pipes are that transport the oil, because that you can do in another way. You can build new pipes leading west instead of east, but it's also the oil refineries in Hungary that are tweaked to use the specific compounds of the Russian oil. So that makes it still dependent on Russian oil, and that's also the reason that the EU has looked away time and again at the usage of Russian oil by Hungary, because they know that it cannot be changed overnight, this dependency on the specific mix of Russian oil.
All right, absolutely. And don't you think that Orban's stance here is rather courageous, given the fact that this is a rare journey by an European Union leader during the ongoing conflict in Ukraine?
Yeah, and that's a role that Orban likes to play. And he's also, of course, eyeing his re-election next year, the elections in Hungary that are bound to be exciting. He is not sure of his win, so he wants to be seen as a statement. And that's also the reason that he will not only talk energy with Vladimir Putin, but also the peace in Ukraine. There was talks a while ago on a peace summit, direct meeting between Zelensky, Trump, and Putin in Budapest, the capital of Hungary. That plan did not come to fruition, but that's a win that Orban still wants to have. So whenever there is a meeting, whenever there is a peace plan ready to be signed, he wants it to happen in Hungary. And that's for sure something they will talk about. But I think, and that's also the analysis of a lot of other people, that the 28-point Trump plan is not quite there yet.
Do you think that this move also risks him sanctions from the US?
Well, he has talked, of course, with his close friends by now, the US President Donald Trump, who has threatened sanctions on countries like India, like Hungary, that continue to use Russian oil. But Orban has seemed to be able to get an exemption from that rule. So he has some leeway from Donald Trump, as he has from the European Union, to continue using Russian oil. And that's like the practical side of it. There's the symbolic side of it, of course, that you don't want to be dependent on Russia, looking from a European or an American perspective. And that's again, the role that Orban likes to play. He likes to be in the middle, being able to play both sides to his advantage. And that's how many people view the visit to Moscow. He has been there for the last 15 years on average every year, to the chagrin, to the frowned eyes in Brussels, of course, where they see Orban operating alone. But he is a EU member state, and as such, he gives Russia the opportunity to use that to its advantage. They have a friend inside of the European Union. Russia likes that. Orban likes to play that role, and in Brussels, they really do not like that.
All right, thank you, Sana, for joining us here at News World. And with that, viewers, let's shift our focus to news from Germany, where German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier will become the first German head of a state to visit Guernica, the Basque town devastated by a Nazi air raid during Spain's civil war, in one of the first modern air bombings of civilians. Now, Steinmeier, accompanied by Spain's King Philippe VI and Basque Regional President Emmanuel Pradales, will lay a wreath at a cemetery housing a mausoleum built in 1973 for hundreds of victims of the bombings. The visit comes after the far-right Alternative for Germany tops some nationwide polls and is expected to perform strongly in the 5 state elections next year. And that's a wrap on the NewsX Eurozone, but do keep watching NewsX World for more international updates from across the world.
In the midst of this, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.
What we can do as the Interparliamentary Union to strengthen democracy, to promote human rights, to ensure that humanitarian law is respected.
UN Security Council needs a makeover, a comprehensive reform, and India deserves a position there, a role there.
Prime Minister Modi during Operation Sindoor made it amply clear that war has never been India's choice. We are with the side of peace. We are neither neutral nor indifferent. We are with peace.
We would have dealt with the US a whole lot on trade and those kinds of things, and that's not as certain these days. So we have to go back and look at our European partners, our Asian partners.
An opportunity to exchange, to have a dialogue, to have a debate on a different perspective on finding the solution of the conflict.
First thing that is important to have a common ground, and that we do have with humanitarian laws and human rights, but also to say, okay, what does it mean for us as a country to act on these laws and how can we work together?
When we realize that there's something wrong with democracy, the institutions and policies, values come together and we take stock, and it's possible then to improve and chart a new course for democracy.
It's the people's right to self-determination, and if they want to be independent, they should be independent. We will not start a war against Greenland.
In the midst of this, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.
What we can do as the Interparliamentary Union to strengthen democracy, to promote human rights, to ensure that humanitarian law is respected.
UN Security Council needs a makeover, a comprehensive reform, and India deserves a position there, a role there.
Prime Minister Modi during Operation Sindoor made it amply clear that war has never...
Hello and welcome to NewsX World. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching Hollywood Calling. From celebrity scoops to film and music buzz, here's a quick look at what's making headlines in the entertainment world this week. Disney is officially moving ahead with Frozen 3 and Frozen 4, bringing back Kristen Bell and Josh Gad on huge $60 million deals. Jennifer Lee will be directing Frozen 3 for Thanksgiving 2027. Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker are back together for Rush Hour 4. The long-delayed sequel gets studio backing and fans can't wait to see the iconic duo on the big screen again. Netflix hit series Stranger Things returns with the first 4 episodes of its finale season. Volume 1. The final chapter promises to wrap up mysteries lingering since Season 1. Billie Eilish is set to take fans inside her Hit Me Hard and Soft tour with a new 3D concert documentary. Paramount Pictures will release the film in cinemas on 20th March 2026. And let's begin with the top story on Hollywood Calling. Thai courts have issued an arrest warrant for Jakapong and the Jakrat Juto tip, the co-owner of Miss Universe organization, after she failed to appear for a scheduled verdict in a fraud case. Authorities say she allegedly misled an investor while seeking funds for her company and is now considered a flight risk, with reports claiming she may have left for Mexico. This development comes amid weeks of controversy surrounding the pageant, including a heated exchange involving officials and winner Miss Mexico Fatima Bosch. The court has now rescheduled the verdict for December 26th. And moving on, Disney is officially moving ahead with Frozen 3 and Frozen 4, and the franchise's biggest stars are returning with record-breaking deals. Kristen Bell, Josh Gad, and Idina Menzel have each secured contracts worth more than $60 million, making them some of the highest paid actors in animated film history. The new agreements include massive upfront payments and box office bonuses. Director Jennifer Lee is back to lead Frozen 3, set for a Thanksgiving 2027 release. With its first two films grossing over $2.7 billion combined, Disney is betting big on the next chapter of its global phenomena. And Chadwick Boseman received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in his memory in an emotional ceremony honoring his life and legacy. The Black Panther star, who died in 2020 after a private battle with colon cancer, was celebrated by his co-star Viola Davis, director Ryan Coogler, and his wife Taylor Simone Ledward. Viola Davis remembered Boseman as a mighty elixir, praising his depth, purpose, and spirit. Coogler called him a true leader marked by generosity and humility. Fans and industry peers say the star serves as a lasting tribute to an artist who transformed cinema and inspired millions. And moving on now, viewers, Dwayne Johnson reveals he pitched himself for a role in The Devil Wears Prada 2. He said he was ready to wear size 15 heels. The action star, famous for The Smashing Machine, says he wanted to play a cool character who knew fashion. Johnson discussed his ambition with co-star Emily Blunt, who confirmed he tried to land a part. Although he did not secure the role, Blunt kept him updated with on-set videos from New York City. Now, the upcoming sequel, directed by David Frankel, starring Meryl Streep and Anne Hathaway, is scheduled for release on 1st of May in 2026, promising a return to the iconic fashion film franchise. And Shrobana Rakshit, who's an entertainment writer, is joining us live from Bengaluru. We welcome you, Shrobana, on this discussion. What do you make of Dwayne Johnson pitching himself for a role in The Devil Wears Prada 2, firstly?
I think it's very interesting to someone, actually an actor, trying to break from their stereotypical character, stereotypical role, and trying to at least having the guts to try something, especially something the so-called feminine. I think kudos to that.
Sure. Are you surprised he wanted to step into the franchisee world, given his action hero image?
I think it is very surprising because mostly there are, especially male actors, are most of the time put into boxes. Like if someone is an action hero, then that actor is an action hero. And for some actor to transform to, like, not just from action hero to something emotional, but something as feminine, and something in a movie like The Devil Wears Prada that has everything to do with fashion, everything to do with something that has been traditionally called more feminine, more women-like. And for an actor like Johnson to actually having the guts to say that he wants to be a part of the movie and wants, he is absolutely okay with wearing like heels is, I think that's great.
Now, he's also joked about being ready to wear size 15 heels. How do you see that blending with his action star persona?
I think it's if that ever happens, I think that's going to bring about like a huge change in fashion, in gender discourse. Because whenever we see actors like Johnson, we don't imagine them in their soft era. We always imagine them in wearing like these tight-fitted t-shirts, showing off their muscles. And an actor like that, a persona like that, trying to mold themselves into something so groundbreaking in itself is very brave. And I think that will also change how we conceive fashion, how we conceive androgynous fashion, that men who actually love donning a pair of skirt or heels does not necessarily have to be, lean, thin, of a certain kind, but someone as masculine and as like bicep ridden, muscular as Johnson can also sport a pair of heels. I think that will be great for the industry in general.
Don't you think had he starred in the film, there would have been a new discourse written in the fashion industry? And also, uh, this attempt to be versatile is what makes him one of the highest paid actors in the world.
Absolutely. I mean, if you would have been a part of the film, I think that would have been great. That would have not been in our 2026 bingo card, absolutely. And yes, of course, versatility has a lot to do with, having the guts to take up new roles, because it's very easy to do a role that audience expects out of you, that you are convinced that you can do something like that. But to break away from your character that audiences have perceived notion of yourself, I think that makes what, like, Johnson, who he really is. And yeah.
All right, to stay on with us, Shobana, we have some more entertainment news to give our viewers now. Netflix hit series Stranger Things returns with the first 4 episodes of its final season, Volume 1, and fans are calling it thrilling. Set in 1987, the show follows Mike Wheeler and his friends as they face the return of villain Vecna, targeting a new generation. Now, the Propel Gang, beg your pardon, the doppelganger of Henry Clee is starring Dark Forces, while the original cast, now in their 20s, navigates high-stakes challenges. This final chapter promises to wrap up mysteries lingering since season 1. Stranger Things continues to dominate pop culture, delivering heart-pounding action and nostalgic 80s adventure for viewers worldwide. And moving on, Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker are officially reuniting for Rush Hour 4, bringing the long-delayed franchisee back to life. According to reports, Paramount has secured studio backing and distribution after US President Donald Trump personally lobbied for the project. Director Brett Ratner returns to lead the film, marking his first major studio comeback since Me Too allegations sidelined his career. The original trilogy grossed over $850 million globally and remains a cult favorite. Jackie Chan expressed relief at the revival, joking that time was running out for him and Chris Tucker to film another installment. Fans worldwide are excited to see the duo back on the big screen. And Billie Eilish is set to take fans inside her Hit Me Hard and Soft tour with a new 3D concert documentary. Paramount Pictures will release the film in cinemas on 20th of March next year. The project is co-directed by Eilish and James Cameron, the director of Avatar and Titanic, with production patterns and partners Darkroom Records, Interscope Films and Lightstorm Entertainment. Eilish called it a dream come true to capture one of her favorite tours in 3D. The film will showcase both behind-the-scenes moments and on-stage performances, marking Eilish's first major 3D documentary release. Paramount is positioning it as a groundbreaking music and film collaboration. And Jimmy Kimmel is weighing in on the surprisingly friendly meeting between US President Donald Trump and newly elected New York Mayor Zohran Mamdani. Kimmel said people elected fireworks, but instead got what he called an unlikely Friendsgiving at the White House. Kimmel played clips of reporters asking Trump about Mamdani's past criticism, including calling him a despot. Yet Trump smiled and moved on without reacting. Kimmel joked that Trump was acting like he was giving a wedding toast to his son-in-law, saying the moment showed Trump has no real political convictions. He added that MAGA supporters are now confused about weeks of painting Mamdani as a threat. Kimmel finished by saying no one should be surprised. Trump loves being around famous people, and Mamdani is a rising star who just won big in the country's most important city. Let's bring back Shrobana into the discussion here. Shrobana, what was your reaction to the way Trump and Mayor Mamdani handled their meeting? Friendly or strategic?
I think in terms of Mamdani, I think he's just a cool lad. Okay. But when it comes to Trump, he definitely knows how to stay relevant. I mean, you can not like his policies, you can disagree with him, but you cannot disagree to the fact that he is always on news. And the growing fan base of Mamdani, especially amongst the youth, Trump definitely sees that. And having this so-called friendly gesture with Mamdani is just going to bring him into news. It's going to make him part of Twitter. It's going to make him part of Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube Reels. And I think that's a very strategic approach. And Trump and his PR has been great in building that image of his.
Right now, many expected a clash given Mamdani's past criticism of Trump. What do you think it didn't happen? Why do you think it didn't happen?
I think the lines between politics and entertainment has blurred in the past few years. There was a time when we expected something out of our political leaders. We expected constructive criticism. We expected them to be critical of each other. But going forward in the past few years, we have seen with the emergence of social media as a very powerful tool for politics, that politics has become very synonymous to entertainment. And now, how one gesture by Trump, which now acts the businesses or citizens of America or state out of him, has suddenly made it into news. It has suddenly made it into the Jimmy Kimmel show. And I think that is what political leaders are looking forward to now, rather than like being the talk of the town, rather than being talked about their policy for what for the country or the citizens. The primary goal has shifted to just being the topic of discussion, and doing something as bizarre and unexpected is nothing but making him a topic of discussion. That's the same reason we are talking about Trump right now. If he would have done what we exactly wanted him to do, we wouldn't be talking about him because it would have been the norm, right?
Well, absolutely. Thanks, Shrobana, for joining us for now. Viewers, with that, we move on. Now, Demon Slayer Infinity Castle has broken box office records worldwide and is now eligible for the 2026 Oscars. The film, which was directed by Haruo Suzuki, qualifies for the Best Animated Feature category, with final nominations to be announced on January 22 next year. The movie features the original Japanese voice cast and has released in multiple countries, including India, the US, Canada, and the UK. Academy members from the animation branch will vote, with 5 films expected to make the final nomination list. Moving on, Simon Cowell is addressing claims that he is to blame for Liam Payne's tragic death in 2024. Cowell said it's impossible to hold someone responsible a decade after managing them. He remembered Payne as kind, funny and focused. He added that their last conversation left him feeling hopeful. Cowell has been in touch with Pine's parents, who said Liam was proud of his achievements. Louis Tomlinson also stressed that he blames no one for One Direction's grueling schedule, calling Pine's loss something he'll never really accept. Pine died at 31 after a fall from a hotel balcony in Argentina with an autopsy citing severe head and body injuries. Cowell later paid tribute, saying he was devastated and that Pine was truly loved. And Ariana Grande has tested positive for COVID amid the active promotion of Wicked for Good. The singer confirmed the news on her Instagram story, sharing a photo from her recent appearance on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon and captioned it, "Moments before COVID." This comes just days after she missed interviews at the New York premiere. Her co-star Cynthia Erivo also recently shared that she's been unwell and lost her voice. Due to the diagnosis, Ariana has pulled out of a taped appearance on the Kelly Clarkson show and will miss upcoming Q&A events. Both actors previously tested positive during the filming of the first Wicked movie. And Macaulay Culkin is reflecting on the film that made him a global star 35 years ago, Home Alone. At just 9 years old, Culkin became one of the most iconic faces in Hollywood movies, and decades later, the film remains a beloved classic. During his 35th anniversary tour event, A Nostalgic Night with Macaulay Culkin, the actor revealed he's open to a reboot, saying he wouldn't be completely allergic to it, though it would be just right. He even shared his own idea, a grown-up Kevin, now a widower or divorcee, raising a child who's frustrated by his distracted dad. Instead of burglars, the story would focus on the child setting traps for Kevin. Fans were thrilled as Culkin said it's the closest he has to an elevator pitch, and he's open to the right version of a reboot. And that's a wrap on Hollywood Calling for this week. Your dose of stars, style and stories returns soon.
In the midst of this, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.
Hello and welcome. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching Deep Dive. Now, UK's financial future is in focus once again. Chancellor Rachel Reeves unveiled the Labour government's highly anticipated budget. The headline: sweeping tax hikes aimed at raising £26 billion by 2030. But the timing couldn't be more crucial. Now, with the Labour Party struggling in the polls and political turbulence growing, the budget is being seen as a defining moment for both Reeves and Prime Minister Keir Starmer. This is no ordinary fiscal adjustment. This is a statement of priorities. Now, as Reeves set out her plans, she announced tax rises aimed squarely at the country's wealthiest, while attempting to balance the books without returning to austerity. But the question remains, will this fiscal overhaul prove a boon for the middle class, or will it spark another wave of discontent. Let's break down what exactly is in this package. The headline reforms include freezing income tax thresholds, which means that millions of taxpayers will effectively face higher taxes as inflation pushes their income higher. This move alone is expected to raise significant funds, but it's not the only change. The freezing of income tax and national insurance thresholds until 2031 could drag more individuals into the higher tax bands. Now, this is likely to affect the middle income earners the hardest as their wages rise with inflation, pushing them into paying more despite no change in tax rates. A new annual charge on high-end property owners is also set to bring in substantial revenue. Homes valued over £2 million will incur an additional tax ranging from £2,500 to £7,500 depending on the value of the property. There's also a 3p per mile tax on electric cars, a decision that's bound to spark backlash from green groups and owners of electric vehicles who have been encouraged previously by the government to go green. Plug-in hybrids will face a lower 1.5p tax. Additionally, the government is increasing taxes on online gambling, raising the duty from 15% to 25%, likely aiming to curb the explosive growth in the sector and generate new revenues for public services. And for high earners, the tax-free limits on pension savings will be reduced to £2,000 for salary sacrifice schemes, a move that could impact business owners and high earners looking to shelter their income from tax. So why these measures? Chancellor Reeves insists that these reforms are necessary to fund public services, reduce the deficit and stabilize government borrowing. The Treasury projects a fall in borrowing over the next several years with a forecast surplus by 2030 to 31, signaling a fiscal discipline and an end to the austerity measures that have plagued the UK in recent years. Now, with a clear focus on tackling debt, the budget outlines that borrowing will fall from €138 billion in 2025-26 to €67.2 billion by 2031. The Chancellor has positioned these reforms as a key strategy for fiscal sustainability and to prevent a return to austerity. But there's more to it. Reeves is also scrapping the two-child benefit cap, which will benefit many low-income families, while other measures like a freeze on prescription charges and rail fares are designed to give immediate relief to struggling households. Yet critics argue that the burden of these reforms will fall disproportionately on the middle class, which already faces a heavy cost of living. Is this truly the right strategy for economic recovery, or is it a band-aid solution that will only squeeze the majority? Is a question that's being raised by many. The response from the public has been mixed, with the middle class standing at the heart of the debate. For many, the tax freeze on tax thresholds could mean a subtle but significant increase in their tax burden. Imagine this: you're a teacher, a small business owner, or a civil servant, and your wages are rising with inflation. But because the tax bands are frozen, more of your income gets taxed at higher rates, pushing you into the next bracket, leaving you with less disposable income. Middle income earners, already struggling with rising living costs, are bearing the brunt of this policy. Many in this group were hoping for a break from austerity, a sign that their concerns about the rising cost of living would be addressed without a tax hike. But it seems now that these voters are being asked to contribute more to the pot without significantly help from their own pockets. Now, for the rich, the reaction has been more predictable. Why? Tax increases on property and savings, particularly those with assets in the multi-million pound range, are drawing ire from high net worth individuals as well. Already, there are signs that the ultra-wealthy are contemplating leaving the United Kingdom for a friendlier tax jurisdiction. Billionaires like steel magnate Lakshmi Mittal have reportedly moved their tax residence abroad, following in the footsteps of other high-profile figures such as Revolt founder Nick Staronsky. Now, many in this bracket argue that these tax hikes are unsustainable for the UK's competitive edge, with some entrepreneurs voicing concerns over the impact on their ability to invest and grow their businesses. But as Martin Ott, the CEO of the tax platform TaxFix, pointed out, those with wealth should consider their social responsibilities to stay and contribute to the country's growth. But as the ultra-wealthy seek out tax havens, the government must ask, how much is too much? How many entrepreneurs can the country afford to lose? Now, the political fallout from the budget is already unfolding. The Conservative opposition is up in arms, calling the tax hikes a broken promise and demanding Chancellor Reeves resign. They point to last year's tax increases and the promise that this would be a one-off, not the beginning of a cycle of continuous tax hikes. Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch called this a total humiliation for Reeves, accusing her of betraying the British people's trust. Listen in.
Total humiliation, Madam Deputy Speaker. Last year, she put up taxes by £40 billion, the biggest tax raid in British history. She promised that she wouldn't be back for more. She swore it was a one-off. She told everyone that from now on, it would be stability and she would pay for everything with growth. Today, she has broken every single one of those promises. If she had any decency, she would resign. She has chosen to put up tax after tax after tax, taxes on workers, taxes on savers, taxes on pensioners, taxes on investors, taxes on homes, holidays, cars, I think even milkshakes, taxes on anyone doing the right thing.
But the Labour government, with an eye on reducing the tax deficit and ensuring the country can weather future economic shocks, is sticking to its guns, arguing that these tax hikes are necessary for the country's long-term fiscal health. The debate over the 2025 budget is far from over, but what's clear is that the tax reforms are a pivotal moment for both the United Kingdom economy and the political landscape. Joining us on this discussion now is our guest, Vicky Price, who is a British economist and a former joint head of the United Kingdom's Government Economic Service. Joins us live from London. Extend you a very warm welcome, Ms. Price, for joining us here at News X World. And now I straight want to take the first question with you. Now, given the recent tax hikes proposed by Chancellor Rachel Reeves, how do you assess the balance between raising revenue and stimulating economic growth?
In this particular budget, she didn't really do very much to stimulate growth. She's just transferring some money from the taxpayers to pay for the welfare bill, which of course is increasing anyway because of higher inflation and higher demands, but also to fund the removal of the two-child benefit cap. What she had done, though, before, I think it's worth bearing in mind that a year ago, and I think that was also mentioned at the dispatches that you...
What we can do as the Interparliamentary Union to strengthen democracy, to promote human rights, to ensure that humanitarian law is respected.
UN Security Council needs a makeover, a comprehensive reforms, and India deserves a position there, a role there.
Prime Minister Modi during Operation Sindoor made it amply clear that war has never been India's choice. We are with the side of peace.
Hello and welcome. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching World Report on News X World. Let's take a look at the top headlines this hour. Hong Kong authorities report that 128 are now dead, with 79 injured, including 12 firefighters, one seriously, in a high-rise apartment complex fire in Tai Po. Rescue efforts are complete, but around 200 residents remain unaccounted for. US President Donald Trump announces that National Guard trooper Sarah Beckstrom has died after a shooting near the White House. He said the second soldier remains in critical condition and is fighting for his life. US President Donald Trump announces a sweeping set of immigration proposals. He vows to permanently pause migration from all third world countries and launch what he described as a reverse migration to restore order in the United States. Russian President Putin meets with his Hungarian Prime Minister Orban in Moscow, praising his stance on Ukraine and suggesting Budapest could host talks with the US on the conflict. Orban stresses that Hungary will continue relying on Russian energy despite European Union and US pressure. US President Donald Trump says the United States will very soon begin action on land to stop suspected Venezuelan drug traffickers. They will soon expand operations beyond maritime strikes amid rising tension and increased US military deployments in the region. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Kyiv holds daily consultations with international partners to counter Russia's war. He adds Ukrainian and US delegations will meet again to advance frameworks for peace and security guarantees. The Jordanian Foreign Ministry confirmed that 2 Jordanians were killed after being illegally recruited to fight for the Russian army, with spokesperson Food Majali warning that such recruitment violates Jordanian and international law. The ministry has urged citizens to report recruitment attempts and has called on Russia to halt Jordanian enlistments. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei criticizes the Trump administration, calling it unworthy of contact or cooperation with Tehran. He also denied rumors that Iran had sent messages to Washington. And viewers, Hong Kong authorities have confirmed that the deadly high-rise fire that killed at least 128 people was started on lower floor protective netting and spread via flammable styrofoam boards and bamboo scaffolding. Security Chief Chris Tang said the fire quickly spread upward and was fueled by burning debris. 5 people have been arrested as of now, including 2 directors from Will Power Architects and 3 senior staff from Prestige Construction and Engineering. Authorities also revealed that fire alarms were malfunctioning and promised enforcement action. Adding on, Chinese President Xi Jinping and Hong Kong's Chief Executive John Lee have expressed condolences, with a full criminal investigation now underway. And residents of the Wan Phu Court housing complex are devastated after the deadly fire engulfed the development, claiming at least 128 lives and leaving 200 still missing. Many people who once lived happily in the community now face the trauma of unsurety. With neighbors gone and homes destroyed, police have arrested 3 construction officials on manslaughter charges after unsafe flammable material, including foam boards, blocking windows, were found to have contributed to the rapid spread of the blaze. Let's listen.
呢度係我屋企，望去嗰度10樓就係我屋企，嗰個排山嗰度就係我屋企。屋企應該係唔會俾我哋翻去㗎啦，所以我望到我屋企，我心好難受。開心嘅我哋屋企，我哋呢個小區嘅人都好開心嘅，知道。我哋呢個小區嘅啲人咧，生活個個都好好嘅，都唔係話。 個個生活都係好幸福嘅感覺俾我哋，因為我哋日日翻工放工，街坊見到都好熱情打招呼，但係而家啲街坊我都見唔翻，又唔知佢哋點喎。
Moving on now, viewers, to news from Pakistan, where Imran Khan's son Qasim has issued a sharp warning to the government, alleging that the former Prime Minister is being held in inhumane isolation inside the Adiala jail. His remarks come amid a surge of online rumors claiming Khan may have died in custody, triggered by an unverified Afghan media report. Qasim addressed on social media that it has been 845 days since his father's arrest, and that for the past 6 weeks, he has been confined to a death cell with no family contact. He claimed that despite court orders, Khan's sisters have been repeatedly denied meetings and that he and his brother have no communication with their father. Calling the situation complete darkness, Qasim has alleged that this isolation is not linked to security but an intentional effort to hide Khan's condition and whereabouts. He has warned that the Pakistani government and its masters would bear full responsibility for his father's safety. Qasim has urged international bodies to intervene and demanded proof of life, court-ordered access, an end to isolation, and the release of what he called Pakistan's most popular political leader. Imran Khan's sister Alima Khanum has echoed these concerns, saying the family has faced months of inconsistent and restricted access, often waiting outside the prison for hours only to be refused. She has stated that Pakistan facing darkest time and the controversy continues. Adiala jail authorities have rejected all rumors about Khan's health, however, or transfer, insisting he is in completely good health and remains in the facility. Imran Khan has been jailed since August 2023 and multiple cases are against him. He says all those cases are politically driven. And Abdul Yaqub, who's a spokesperson of Pakistan's PTI, is joining us live from Islamabad. Thank you for joining us here on NewsX World. I want to ask you, what really do you think is happening to Imran Khan?
Well, we exactly do not have any information, any clue about Imran Khan's condition, what is going on with him now. I mean, whether he's confined in Adiala jail or he's present in Adiala jail's premises, there is no news, no updates. There is no single person, reliable person who can confirm us. We don't have any source who can meet him. The meeting is being denied from last 25 days. Even the court hearings are postponed, which was supposed to be happened yesterday. So no lawyer, no family member, no immediate family member, no friend, no lawyer is allowed to meet him. So that is a very, very concerning. I mean, it's deeply concerning. We have a grave concern about his health and his condition at the moment. I cannot say anything with the certainty that what is exactly going on with Imran Khan and where he is exactly at the moment. I mean, this is a very absurd situation. It is creating panic amongst the people, amongst the followers of Imran Khan. It had never happened before. I mean, we have over apprehensions are that his life is at a risk, in a great danger, because dark historical record shows us that Mr. Bhutto was hanged, Benazir Bhutto was assassinated on the roads of the Pindi, Liaquat Ali Khan was killed in a public gathering. So the dark histories, I mean, we are getting more scared about Imran Khan.
But the government advisors are saying that he continues to remain in good condition and health.
Even, I mean, they are irrelevant in this matter. Usually when the former prime ministers or popular leaders are being arrested, they are in the custody of the military establishment, not in the government's custody. So these so-called puppet government advisors or cabinet members are nothing to do with this. I mean, they don't have, even the prime minister do not have any jurisdiction. I mean, when chief minister of KPK contacted prime minister when he got elected and asked him to arrange and facilitate the meeting with Imran Khan, even the prime minister shows his helplessness in this matter. And yesterday it was the 9th time that the chief minister of the KPK went to the Adiala jail, and he spent the whole night outside the Adiala jail and was being denied any access to Imran Khan. So this is the state of affairs at the moment. I don't know where it is leading towards.
What are your demands? I would want to ask that. And also, do you think that Asim Munir's, the crackdown on the PTI have escalated after Asim Munir's elevation?
Well, yes, the major crackdown was after the 9th May, where 10,000 workers were being arrested. At that moment, still there are over hundreds of workers under the military custody who are facing the military trials. Some are sentenced, and still thousands of the workers are behind the bars. And since this current in the current military leadership, we are facing the worst kind of dictatorship, and the way they are trying to suppress us, it never have happened in the liberal democracies. So currently, it is like they are approaching with the medieval kind of approach. There is no rule of law, which I mean, we cannot even seek justice from the courts. We have court orders. Despite the court orders having court orders, the court orders are being violated, being humiliated by the authorities, by the police, by the jail authorities. So I mean, the only option left to us is to massively protest on the roads and go for the shutdown, go for the strikes. Otherwise, we do not have any other option left.
All right. Well, for now, thank you for joining us, Abdul Yaqub on News X World. And viewers, we now move on to news from Russia. President Vladimir Putin welcomed Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban to the Kremlin today, praising his balanced position on Ukraine. Orban, who is a strong pro-Moscow European Union leader, has consistently opposed tougher sanctions on Russia and criticized Western aid to Ukraine. During the meeting, Putin said that he would be glad to host talks on Ukraine with the US in Budapest. Energy issues were also highlighted, with Orban emphasizing Hungary's continued reliance on Russian energy. Orban added that Hungary will continue to rely heavily on Russian energy, signaling its commitment despite European Union and US pressure to diversify away from Russia. Now, Orban is the first European Union leader to take this stance on Russia, and he in fact has also criticized US aid to Ukraine. He will be meeting Putin very soon. There are also reports surfacing about how Orban said that he will continue to import oil and gas from Russia as it continues to remain the most viable option. Energy issues were also highlighted, with Orban emphasizing Hungary's continued reliance on Russian energy. It's signaling its commitment despite European Union and US pressure to diversify away from Russia. Now, Orban is a strong pro-Moscow EU leader, consistently has opposed tougher sanctions on Russia. He's also criticized Ukraine's dependence on the United States. And now, let's welcome retired Major General Sudhakarji, who's an international relations and defense expert, into the discussion here at News X World. Welcome back, retired Major General, here on News X World. It's a very interesting stance that Orban is taking, one very similar to India's as well, as far as energy and oil and gas import is concerned. Do you think the elections due in Hungary next year has anything to do with this?
Certainly, Kirti, yes, because any activity now which is taking place along the Eastern Europe border and in Central Europe will have all the connections with the ongoing conflict and the economics which are supporting the conflict, both sides, I would say. And so much so, Hungary, we know the loyalty, the standing reputation, and its long-standing relationship with Russia, it definitely will have, because it is one of the country which is not budging. You know, that at one point in time, like India stood its ground despite all pressures and all kinds of tariff and everything. India stood its ground and insisted, no, we support, we respect our strategic autonomy. It is in the national interest, it is in the interest of the people. Same is the case with Hungary. Back to you, please.
All right, to stay on with us, we now shift to another crucial news coming in. China's top diplomat Wang Yi will travel to Russia next week for high-level security talks. Beijing's foreign ministry announced that Wang will be in Russia for a routine Russia-China strategic security consultation. He was invited by Russian security chief Sergei Shoigu. During the meetings, Wang is expected to exchange views on international and regional issues of mutual concern and strengthen communication and coordination on key strategic security matters. The visit comes as the US renews its push to end the war in Ukraine. Washington recently surprised Kyiv and European partners with a new proposal to resolve the nearly 4-year conflict. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin said he would end the offensive if Ukraine withdrew from the territory claimed by Moscow. Otherwise, he warned Russian forces would seize it by force. All right, viewers, let's welcome retired Major General Sudhakar Jain to the discussion here. So what do you think is going to be the key agenda and outcome of this crucial meeting between China and Russia?
Kriti, the key agenda, as I see, would be revolving around the changing dynamics in the geopolitical churn. When I say changing dynamics, it will be in keeping with the larger interest central to all its activities in relation to China's national interest. When I say China's national interest, what is the China's national interest? As I look at things, you see, given the turmoil which is happening inside the USA in its domestic constituency and its extended outreach to resolve the issue in Middle East and in the Central Europe, the likely bottlenecks which are going to come its way, you see, there is a contestation, there is a strategic rivalry between China and the USA for their dominance in the world over. Today, while we discuss the issue on the channel, we need to acknowledge one fact, whether willingly or unwillingly, we need to accept that despite USA being a superpower, China has left USA behind in many issues, economics, technology, and critical minerals, rare earth element, and the supply chain dependence on China as a manufacturing hub in the world. Although the world order is trying to switch and diversify and de-risk its options, but the fact remains something on which the whole world order was dependent for 40 long years or more than that. You cannot actually switch your dependence overnight. It takes lots of time, maybe another equal amount, if not equal, at least 20, 30 years to de-risk. So under this backdrop, first and foremost thing that comes to my mind is that in any case, there is no light at the end of the tunnel in the peace proposal which is being given now, 28 point between Russia and Ukraine. But if, let's say, hypothetically, we all try and project an optimistic kind of outlook, let's say the peace actually materializes, it actually sustains. In that case, the dynamics will undergo change, because what I feel, America in earnest is trying to take Russia away from the embrace of China. You see, America is trying to form a kind of a G2 separately when it comes to China. When it comes to Russia, it is keeping in the back of the mind that there are three poles. One is America, the second is Russia, the third is China. These are the global dynamics and the imperatives. So take Russia onto its lap, keep the Russia on its side, and isolate China in a manner so that it becomes easy for America or USA to firstly contain, then to counter, and if push comes to shove, if it is required, go in for a competitiveness kind of a rivalry and then lead to a contestation, which is not desirable. So the key issue as far as USA is concerned, isolate China. The key issue as far as China is concerned is to isolate the USA and keep playing its game in a manner so that it attains, rejuvenates its Middle Kingdom concept by 2049 or earlier than that, and retains the authority and supremacy of a global power, which without firing a shot, not like proxy war which is being fought. China does not believe in fighting a kinetic war. China believes in fighting a war or winning a war without fighting one. It's the Sun Tzu's old saying. And the third component in your question is Russia. Where does Russia go? Russia, will it be there inside of the China or it goes onto the flank of USA? Well, that time is going to say. Everything can be changed, but geography cannot be changed. By virtue of contiguity, by virtue of proximity between Russia and China, there will be a degree of difference although, but there will also be a high degree of dependence on many issues. China will be continue to buy oil from Russia. Russia also would be dependent on China for many military hardware and other things, as also the supply chain management of many products and issues.
All right. Well, thank you, Retired Major General, for sharing your perspective with us. And viewers, let's move on now. The Iranian Football Federation has said that it will boycott next week's World Cup finals draw in Washington after the United States refused to grant visas to several members of its delegation. Federation President Mehdi Taj condemned the move as political and said he has urged FIFA President to press the US to reverse what he called unacceptable behavior. The US, which is co-hosting the 2026 World Cup with Canada and Mexico, has had strained relations with Iran for over 4 decades. Recent nuclear talks between Washington and Tehran, already tense over Iran's uranium enrichment program, collapsed in mid-June after Israel launched a major bombing campaign against Iran, a conflict that escalated into a 12-day war and drew brief US involvement with strikes on Iranian nuclear sites. Let's bring back retired Major General Sudhakarji into the discussion here. So this was clearly in the writing. Are we even surprised with the action that Iran is taking?
Yeah, the writing was large on the wall. It was a known case. In fact, I am not surprised that such a ban would take place. It has happened for many issues. 2 of them you have listed out in the preamble which you have given. There are many issues. You see, even now, despite the fact that there is a ongoing conflict in the Middle East, to quite an extent, Iran continues to provide some of the military hardware to Russia. They have got a strategic partnership this year only. The leadership of Iran had visited Russia. They have signed, but that partnership is all predominated by economic paradigm. It doesn't have any military overhang or bearing. So when I say this, what I mean is that if Iran is attacked, will Russia come to its support with boots on ground? It doesn't say anything about yes, nor does it say no. So they are strategic partners. But it continues to provide the military hardware. Second thing is that if you recall the hijab issue and the lady who was taken into police custody and finally she died, I'm forgetting her name, Asmin, she died in the police custody. That is another issue which is related to human rights. Also, the third issue is that you alluded to the uranium enrichment. You see, notwithstanding what is coming out in the open media, my research has suggested many on occasion that much against what Iran and open media is suggesting, that it has already crossed or reached 60% of enrichment capability. I have sources to, credible sources to indicate that Iran has already crossed 86.7, rather to be more precise and specific, 87.7% of enrichment. The little boy which was dropped over Hiroshima way back in 1945 had an enrichment scale of 86.6%. So you can well imagine where Iran stands and how much effort would it require Iran to actually reach or have a nuclear warhead, which may be a big threat not only to Middle East but to USA as well. And last but not the least is that Iran consistently continues to actually, cause a lot of impediment to, hidden agenda of all activities taking place, despite the agreement between Saudi Arabia and Iran with the help of China. It is not a reliable and credible partner for Abraham Accord, because the feud or the conflict between Shia and Sunni is an ongoing conflict for past nearly over 1400 years. So that conflict to come to an end in the Middle East so soon, so abruptly, without any sustainable and consistent effort, overnight, I would say, comparatively overnight, is a very tall order, and it's a pipe dream. So therefore, the entire dynamics, the historical perspective has to undergo change. There is a contestation between the three countries, Turkey, Saudi Arabia and Iran, for Ummah leadership. And likewise, Shia Sunni will continue. Iran will continue to support, like I have been saying through your channel, it is called the octopus doctrine. The head of octopus is Iran, and the tentacle of Houthis and Hamas and Hezbollah and Habib al-Said, this is the fourth H. They remain active in addition to the militia with the support of Iran, although they have been decimated to large an account. But they will keep reviving with the ugly face. So under these circumstances, USA in no uncertain terms had made it very clear in the past as also now that the FIFA participation by USA with regard to these four names that are figuring, I think it is only four names, stands to be banned. They will not be provided visa. Right. Also, in the open source, I am given to some indications that the complete Iran is going to be banned. This is the latest is coming. Okay. So Iran is disallowed to participate in FIFA completely. That is what the latest is saying.
That's true, and I do see your point. But thank you for joining us here on News World. And with that, viewers, let's swiftly move on to news from Thailand, where flooding in the southern country has claimed at least 145 lives, as per officials, and receding waters revealed widespread devastation. More than 1.2 million households and 3.6 million people across 12 provinces have been affected. Songkhla province was the hardest hit, with at least 110 deaths reported. As flood waters retreat, rescuers have gained better access to submerged areas, recovering more bodies and aiding survivors. Streets and homes remain damaged, with overturned vehicles and debris scattered widely. Authorities warn that while rainfall has decreased, thunderstorms could still occur in some areas, and some flood levels remain dangerously high. Moving on now, Google has dropped its antitrust complaint against Microsoft over cloud computing practices just a week after the European Union regulators launched an investigation into the issue. Google had alleged that Microsoft's actions locked customers into its Azure cloud platform. The move comes after the European Commission announced it would access and assess issues with the cloud sector under a separate process. Google is focusing on advocating for openness and choice in the cloud market, as Microsoft and Amazon dominate the sector. The European Union's probes could lead to designating both companies as gatekeepers, opening the door to new regulations. And that's a wrap on NewsX World Report. Keep watching NewsX World for more international news updates.
in the midst of this, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.
Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you're watching World Report on News 6 World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. US President Donald Trump has announced that National Guard trooper Sarah Backstorm has died after a shooting near the White House. He has said that the sickened soldier remains in critical condition and is fighting for his life. US President Donald Trump has announced a sweeping set of immigration proposals. He vowed to permanently pause migration from all third world countries and launch what he described as reverse migration to restore order in the United States. US President Donald Trump has said that the United States will very soon begin action on land to stop suspected Venezuelan drug traffickers. They will soon expand operations beyond maritime strikes amid rising tensions and increased US military deployments in the region. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that Kyiv holds daily consultations with international partners to counter Russia's war. He has added that Ukrainian and US delegations will meet again to advance frameworks for peace and security guarantees. The Jordan Foreign Ministry has confirmed that 2 Jordanians were killed after being illegally recruited to fight for the Russian army, with spokesperson Fuad Majali warning that such recruitment violates Jordanian and international law. The ministry has urged citizens to report recruitment attempts and has called on Russia to halt Jordanian enlistments. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has criticized the Trump administration on calling it unworthy of contact or cooperation with Tehran. He has also denied rumors that Iran had sent messages to Washington. Israeli authorities review a deadly incident in Jenin, West Bank, where IDF soldiers shot 2 men following surrender. Palestine condemned the killings as war crimes. Hong Kong authorities report 79 injured, including 12 firefighters, one seriously in a high-rise apartment complex fire in Tai Po. Rescue efforts are complete, but around 200 residents remain unaccounted for. Now we start this hour with the breaking news. Hong Kong authorities report that the death toll from the city's worst fire in decades has risen to at least 128 people, with around 200 still unaccounted for. The blaze, which engulfed a high-rise complex in Tai Po's northern district, raged for more than 24 hours and is now nearly extinguished. Officials confirmed 79 people were injured, including 12 firefighters, out of which one is in serious condition. Rescue operations have concluded as authorities continue accounting for missing residents and assessing the full impact of the disaster. Now we move on to US. US President Donald Trump has announced a sweeping set of immigration proposals in a social media post, vying to permanently pause migration from all third world countries and launch what he described as reverse migration to restore order. And in the United States, Trump has also stated that he would end all federal benefits for non-citizens, denaturalized migrants who undermine domestic tranquility, and deport any foreign national considered a public charge, security risk, or non-compatible with Western civilization. He has argued that only reverse migration could resolve what he called illegal and disruptive population growth in the U.S. This comes after the killing of 2 National Guards by an Afghan national near the Farragut West Station in the Northwest Quadrant in Washington, D.C. Experts suggest that such a move will have huge global implications and affect millions who shift to the US for jobs, education, and also to escape persecution in their countries. Now for this discussion, we welcome former Ambassador Suresh Goyal. He's a former Indian ambassador, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, looking at this, what would be the global and diplomatic consequences if now that US could significantly restrict immigration? Ambassador, you might be muted here.
Yep. Yes, can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, now, yes. Thank you.
You see, I can understand why President Trump reacted the way he did. But in my own judgment, I think it's rather excessive, with overdone, simply because of the factor that the USA is today in terms of technology. If you look at the number of immigrants who work in NASA, who work in the Harvard University, who work in the research and technology system, who work in their economy, the investment which has come from other countries into their industry is amazing. It's huge, really, and colossal. And therefore, for the USA to declare that all immigrants from the sensitive countries, he would basically re-examine their green cards and reverse immigration. It's all very good to say so, but it will have disastrous impact on the American economy itself. That is number one. Number two, I don't think countries like India are going to be hugely impacted by this. Prime Minister Modi has already declared the scheme for immigration of qualified people, technologically high-level people from the USA to come to India and to start their own work and start their own startups, industry, etc., or the training or the institute. So I don't think India will be hugely impacted by this kind of a situation. They are most welcome to come back to India and start their own research and support the technology system. But it will have bad, very, very adverse impact on the USA itself. And that will mean a cascading impact on the global economy, and that is what I'm worried about.
Right. And, yes. Ambassador, I do agree with you that, this rather seems like U.S. is, or President Trump's administration in particular is kind of outsourcing when pointing fingers. They rather have a lot of gun violence, which is from their own people, right, not from immigrants. Do you think that these kind of things will maybe trigger a debate within U.S. that, why should we rather focus on or pointing out other or, migrants on blaming them for the problems in U.S. domestic shootings? Well, in this case, it was triggered by a migrant, but.
You're absolutely right. I mean, the violence can be engineered by a migrant, no migrant, to the USA. There is no. And please do remember that this Afghanistani person who has been accused of shooting, he was working with CIA in Afghanistan, and he came back to India under the CIA program of giving shelter to those who supported them in their activities in their regime change in Afghanistan. That is so. They actually were working for the USA in that sense. And number two, whoever creates a violence, whether it is American natives or whoever, in fact, I don't even know whether the Americans, the white Americans, can be called the natives. The natives are actually the Indian Americans, or those who were living there even before the whites came there as aliens. So that is the point is not really that. The point is that Trump is known for his anti-immigrant attitude. And in a rush, and basically because of his own beliefs. He has taken a decision or he's doing something which is going to prove catastrophic for the USA economy, and the time will tell, maybe, and I do hope that another 3 years of Trump as the president will not prove to be too long to reverse the impact of such a decision.
Yes. And Ambassador, I really like how you bring up, U.S. is made out of, these white people are not indigenous as well. The U.S. has their own First Nations or their own indigenous community. So how do you think, how long or how far does this phrase used by President Trump in particular for, immigrants go when he says that I'll be sending back the immigrants now?
I think President Trump, even when he is not the president, will continue to use this language for a long time, even when he is not the president, as I said. But the point really here is whether he uses or not. The point here is what it will do to the USA and what it will do to the leadership role that the world expects USA to play. That will be corroded to a great extent, and that's a problem.
Yes, indeed. And building on that, how do you think how risky it is to, linking a single violent incident to sweeping migration reforms? How do you think this will affect U.S.'s public discourse, policy making, and even, as you said, a relationship with international players?
Very, very badly, very badly. The world is already questioning the USA. China is practically baying at its heels. And the China, which has insulated itself practically both in terms of technology and in terms of economy from what the USA, from the decision that the USA takes. The USA, by these kind of decisions, unfortunately, is creating space for the countries that it is trying to repel from coming and basically closer to the number one position, and I mean China. And I don't think the USA will be very comfortable with that, even if Trump is looking forward to meet Xi, but equality will not be comfortable to Trump.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Ambassador Suresh for joining us and sharing that insight on this topic. Now we move on to Europe. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban is meeting Russian President Vladimir Putin today in Moscow to discuss crude oil and gas supplies for Hungary. As well as peace efforts in Ukraine, Orban has maintained close ties with Moscow despite the war in Ukraine, and Hungary remains reliant on Russian energy. Orban has announced the meeting on his Facebook page, saying that he was going to ensure Hungary's energy supply for the coming winter and next year. The discussions will also touch on Ukraine, with Orban noting the challenge of avoiding the topic. This comes after the US granted Hungary an exemption from sanctions on Russian oil and gas. Orban has also proposed a peace summit between Putin and Trump in Budapest, a plan that was shelved earlier this year. Now for this discussion, we welcome Glenn Grant. He's a former advisor to Defense Minister of Ukraine, joins us live from Kyiv. Thank you, Glenn, for joining us today. I hope you're staying safe there. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'm trying.
Thank you. Glad to have you back with us. If you can tell us, is there any role that Viktor Orban can play to get peace between Putin and Zelensky?
No, none at all. And the reason is because he's pulled himself away from anything to do that is sensible to do with the existence and the working of Ukraine. I mean, he not only has aligned himself with Putin, as you can see, because he's going there to see him, but he's pushed away all the other countries that might be allies for him. And he's also constantly accusing Ukraine of doing things against the Hungarian minority.
And Glenn, how does Hungary's continued reliance on Russian oil now, and also gas, even amid this Ukraine war, affect NATO's strategic cohesion and the alliance's ability to present a unified stance?
You've raised good points there. I mean, one of the things is that clearly, I mean, Hungary is just putting hard money into Russia that will be used against Ukraine and may actually be used against Hungary again at some stage, because you can't trust Putin. But it's very difficult for the European Union to claim any sort of solidarity when both Hungary and Slovakia are both undermining joint efforts.
And you know, why did US grant exemption from sanctions for Hungary in particular?
No, it's very simple. I mean, Trump is working, if not for Putin, with Putin to do everything he can to help Putin. And this is one opportunity that he's got by dropping those sanctions with Hungary to ensure that Putin actually gets some hard financial support.
Right. Thank you for simplifying it for us. And Glenn, what security implications arise from a NATO member, again, engaging directly with President Putin?
Oh, well, I mean, the one thing is that you know, despite their difficultness and contrariness of Hungary, they are, of course, party to all the things that Hungary is talking about and all the things that NATO is talking about. And I think it is worrying, because it's almost sure that Orban will just simply hand over to Putin anything that he thinks will get him better leverage with Putin. So security risks, he is a very, very serious security risk on his own.
What does Orban risk for his own country, like Hungary here, for continued engagement with Russia?
Yeah, I mean, this is a good question. I mean, all my Hungarian friends, I have quite a few on you know, so on Facebook and on email. They're all very anti-Orban at the moment, and they think he's just dragging them down for his own personal ambitions with Putin. So I think that, you know, if there is a free and fair election, then Orban is likely to get booted out. But of course, as we know from these things with other countries, there may not be a free and fair election. So we may have more of Orban in the future.
Do you think that even in case of a new or more Orban in the future for Hungary, do you think EU will be trying to corner or punish Hungary for how they have acted during Ukraine and Russia war?
Well, this is a very good question, because I mean, van der Leyen, who sort of, you know, heads the EU, has been extremely weak on this area so far. In fact, weak enough that I suspect that she may have Putin's sympathies, because there has been nothing of any seriousness so far except stopping some of the money that Orban needs for that he probably wants to steal himself. But at some stage, the European Union is going to have to do something. And I do know that they are working on ways not to punish, but just to work around Orban and Hungary with what it's doing.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Glenn for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now we stay in the region. Belgian Prime Minister Bart de Wever has warned that the European Union about using frozen Russian state assets to fund Ukraine that could jeopardize a potential peace deal in the nearly 4-year conflict. In a letter to European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, de Wever has said that moving forward hastily on the proposed $162 billion reparations loan scheme risks preventing an eventual peace agreement. EU leaders previously attempted to approve the plan at the summit last month, but Belgium, which holds a significant portion of the frozen assets, withheld the support. De Wever also notes that Belgium has not yet seen any proposed legal language from the European Commission regarding the scheme. The European Commission aims to address Belgium's concerns in a draft legal proposal set to be presented this week, outlining the use of frozen Russian sovereign assets to support Ukraine in 2026 and 2027. Now for this discussion, we welcome back Glenn Grant. He's a former advisor to Defense Minister of Ukraine, joins us live from Kyiv. Thank you very much, Glenn, for staying with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Now, Glenn, looking at this, do you think this is realistically possible to use the frozen Russian assets for Ukraine and without any repercussions?
Yeah, I mean, there should be no repercussions at all. I mean, the only repercussions that can come are from Russia. And Russia has actually, broken every rule and law that there is going. So why we should worry about what Russia says in the future, I have no idea whatsoever. And that money is there and should be used. The problem is political, and the problem is Belgium. Belgium is obviously getting benefit from holding this money because it's a lot of money, and therefore there's a lot of interest from this. But Belgium has been weak on these matters before, and I don't think that is going to change. They will need serious legal persuasion from the European Union before they actually release these funds.
And well, we can only speculate here, but Glenn, how long do you think that could take? Do you see it happening with the upcoming vote on this?
This is European Union work, and they are notoriously slow. So personally, the way it's been going, if it continues at the same pace, I don't see much happening before sort of February, March time. That would be about par for the course for the EU.
Right, and how about this frozen Russian assets? That Belgian Prime Minister, he warned that using this could jeopardize the ongoing peace efforts. What do you think about that?
Well, it's garbage. It's total garbage because there are no ongoing peace efforts. And I'm sorry, but if he's Prime Minister and he doesn't understand that, he shouldn't be Prime Minister. He needs to go and find a better job that suits him. Digging roads or something, because there's no peace plan, no peace actions going on at all. Putin has made this absolutely clear, and he's not about to change. He will keep fighting.
And how could these state funds, how could this affect strategic calculus for both Kyiv and Moscow?
Well, I mean, looking at Kiev, I mean, Kiev is running up huge debts at the moment, and they even have problems with with paying basic things at times. So this money would actually both free up the government to pay for things they need to pay for, just basic debts, but it would also allow some more money to be used to buy weapons and to buy many of the things that the military needs to continue the war properly. On Russia's side, well, they haven't got the money now, so they're not going to get the money in the near future anyway. So I don't think it makes much difference to Russia, except that in the long term, obviously, even for their rebuilding, they would like some of this money back.
And as you rightfully mentioned, that a lot of things move slow in EU, like a lot of things do move slow also in Japan. But what are the potential security implications for NATO and EU's cohesion if member states they move very slow with these kind of decisions?
That's conjecture, of course, from all of us. There seems to be a certain amount of stability in the relationships at the moment in the European Union. But as you know, the stability between the European Union and America is dripping away fast. I think, over the winter, we're going to see a hardening of the European position and probably have to have a stronger relationship with Japan, as you mentioned, South Korea, Australia, to create a going forward support for Ukraine without the United States of America.
And talking about going forward, what lessons can be drawn from this Belgium's caution, and also regarding any frozen assets, about the interplay between economic measures and conflict resolution in wars?
Well, I think the first and most serious lesson is that people have got to take this war seriously. That too many of the European nations are still treating it as a second activity. So worry about the country first and internal politics, and the war is second. Populations have not been made clear that this war is coming to get them if the European countries don't sort themselves out and actually support Ukraine properly. It's very, very worrying times, really, and it's like drifting. I'm sorry, but we're drifting. We're not actually biting this subject as hard as we should do to support Ukraine in its battle.
So, Glenn, what's your analysis when you say some countries are not taking this war as seriously as they should? Do you think Hungary is taking this very serious?
I think Orban is. I don't know if you've ever seen the size of the palace that Orban lives in. I think Orban is just taking this as to try and get as much political clout as he can with Russia for whatever reason. And to get as much money from the whole of these activities as he can do. He's a dangerous man at the moment, a dangerous man because he's not on our side, and he's made that absolutely clear by his trip to see Putin now.
Right. Well, I'll have to check where Orban lives after this conversation. With that, I would like to thank Glenn Grant for always joining us and sharing that insight as a former advisor to Defense Minister of Ukraine. Now we move on to our next news. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has signed an agreement with the Western energy producing province of Alberta to advance a new oil pipeline, sparking immediate concerns about Ottawa's commitment to battling climate change. The Memorandum of Understanding charts a plan for a pipeline going from Alberta to Canada's Pacific coast to boost oil exports to Asia, which is in line with Carney's goal of expanding overseas trade to offset damage from U.S. President Donald Trump's trade war. Aside from broadening exports,
what we can do as the Interparliamentary Union to strengthen democracy, to promote human rights, to ensure that humanitarian law is respected.
UN Security Council needs a makeover, a comprehensive reform, and India deserves a position there, a role there.
Prime Minister Modi during Operation Sindoor made it amply clear that war has never been India's choice. We are with the side of peace. We are neither neutral nor indifferent. We are with peace.
We would have dealt with US a whole lot on trade and those kinds of things, and that's not as certain these days. So we have to go back and look at our European partners, our Asian partners.
An opportunity to exchange, to have a dialogue, to have a debate on a different perspective on finding the solution of the conflict.
First thing that is important to have a common ground, and that we do have with humanitarian laws and human rights, but also to say, okay, what does it mean for us as a country to act on these laws, and how can we work together?
When we realize that there's something wrong with democracy, the institutions and policies, values come together and we take stock, and it's possible then to improve and chart a new course for democracy.
It's the people's right to self-determination, and if they want to be independent, they should be independent. We will not start a war against Greenland.
In the midst of this, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.
What we can do as the Interparliamentary Union to strengthen democracy, to promote human rights, to ensure that humanitarian law is respected.
UN Security Council needs a makeover, a comprehensive reform, and India deserves a position there, a role there.
Prime Minister Modi during Operation Sindoor made it amply clear that war has never been India's choice. We are with the side of peace. We are neither neutral nor indifferent. We are with peace.
We would have dealt with US a whole lot on trade and those kinds of things, and that's not as certain these days. So we have to go back and look at our European partners, our Asian partners.
An opportunity to exchange, to have a dialogue, to have a debate on a different perspective on finding the solution of the conflict.
First thing that is important to have a common ground, and that we do have with humanitarian laws and human rights, but also to say, okay, what does it mean for us as a country to act on these laws and how can we work together?
When we realize that there's something wrong with democracy, the institutions and policies, values come together and we take stock, and it's possible then to improve and chart a new course for democracy.
It's the people's right to self-determination, and if they want to be independent, they should be independent. We will not start a war against Greenland.
In the midst of this, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth.
Hello and welcome. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching Primetime Asia on NewsX World. Let's first take a check of the headlines at this hour. Hong Kong authorities report that 128 are now dead with 79 injured, including 12 firefighters, one seriously in a high-rise apartment complex fire in Tai Po. Rescue efforts are complete, but around 200 residents remain unaccounted for. Imran Khan's party alleges he's being tortured, kept in solitary confinement, but Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif's aide insists he is fit and fine. Former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte will remain in detention at the International Criminal Court after appeals judge reject a request to release him on health grounds. Sri Lanka deploys troops as flood waters rise. Death toll hits 56, with another 21 people missing. Sri Lanka is currently experiencing the northeast monsoon season, but rainfall has intensified due to a cyclone. India sends relief to Sri Lanka under Operation Sagar Bandhu, but Prime Minister Modi offers condolences on X. He says, guided by India's neighbourhood first policy and vision Mahasagar, India continues to stand firmly with Sri Lanka in its hour of need. Rescuers Step up recovery operations as Southeast Asia floods death toll reaches 321. Thailand, Indonesia and Malaysia reel under floods. The Jordanian Foreign Ministry confirmed that 2 Jordanians were killed after being illegally recruited to fight for the Russian army, with spokesperson Fouad Majli warning that such recruitment violates Jordanian and international law. The ministry has urged citizens to report recruitment attempts and has called on Russia to halt Jordanian enlistments. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei criticizes the Trump administration, calling it unworthy of contact or cooperation with Tehran. He also denied rumors that Iran had sent messages to Washington. And moving on to the top focus story on Primetime Asia, Hong Kong authorities have confirmed that the deadly high-rise fire, which claimed the lives of at least 128 people, began on protective netting and the lower floors and spread rapidly then through inflammable styrofoam boards and bamboo scaffolding. Security Chief Chris Tang stated that the fire quickly ascended, fueled by burning debris. As of now, 5 individuals have been arrested, including 2 directors from Willpower Architects and 3 senior staff members from Prestige Construction and Engineering. Officials also revealed that fire alarms were malfunctioning during the incident and promised strict enforcement action. In response to the tragedy, Chinese President Xi Jinping and Hong Kong's Chief Executive John Lee have expressed their condolences, while a full criminal investigation is currently underway. Let's listen in to Hong Kong's Secretary and Director of Fire.
最初起火嘅位置係宏昌閣低層外邊嘅嗰啲嘅圍網，其後咧係由於燃燒咗嗰啲發泡膠板，火勢迅速咧係向上蔓延，伸延到去多個嘅樓層，並喺短時間內咧係波及咗宏福苑其他6座嘅樓宇。大火咧係引燃咗貼喺嗰啲窗門上邊嘅發泡膠板，令到玻璃爆火，令到火勢咧係急速增強，並且迅速蔓延到咧入到室內。要強調，如果用直升機喺呢個火警裏邊掟水彈，如果喺個樓宇嘅上空投擲水彈，啲水係唔會係不會係會落入個火場裏邊，只會淋咗去一個大廈嘅外。
Let's now welcome Satoru Nagao, who is a fellow at the Hudson Institute, joining us live from Tokyo. A very warm welcome to you, Mr. Nagao, and thanks for joining us here at News World. Now, some of the causes have started coming out, including that of the use of bamboo scaffolding and Chinese nets. But let's talk about a larger question. Is the fire and the consequences of it and the rising death toll posing a threat now for China's grip on the city, especially when local elections are upcoming in December?
My election itself, in case of China, there is no problem even in Hong Kong, because recently there is no criticize against the government side, so that's why this is not affected. But in this case, the security level is a matter, because if the bamboo stage is a cause of the problem to spread the fire, and this is not only the reason because the cause bamboo itself do not create the fire. So there's a possibility the cigarette the workers are using, and it could be something cause of fire. After that, this bamboo stage is a cause of spread rapidly. So that's why the what is the rule in the Hong Kong, because the crisis management level or safety standard, these are the job of the local government, and after that, of course, a company should follow this. These are the one by one they need to check. And in this case, that's why if the governmental side has some problem of the safety measures, of course, there's a possibility it will be a risk for the government. But under the China's rule, one country, one system rule currently, instead of the two system. So that's why, in this case, election is not meaning there is a chance to criticize the government. So that's why the election itself is not related with this issue, I think.
All right, well, thank you for joining us now here on NewsX World. And with that, viewers, we shift our focus. Now, India's Defense Secretary Rajesh Kumar Singh has said that India will continue defense cooperation with Russia while steadily growing partnerships with the United States. Speaking at FICCI's 98th annual general meeting, he emphasized that India follows strategic autonomy, sourcing equipment from multiple countries, including the United States, Russia, and France. Singh further noted that over 1.33 lakh crore Indian rupees have been spent this year, with nearly 88% involving domestic suppliers, and that future foreign purchases will mostly involve joint production within India. The leader also highlighted the ministry's plan to seek a 20% increase in the defense budget to meet India's modernization needs. The focus remains on boosting domestic production while maintaining selective imports and international cooperation. Madhav Nalapat, who is the director of editorial at TSG, is now joining us live from New Delhi. I extend you a very warm welcome, sir, here at NewsX World, and thank you for joining us. Now, India has clearly maintained its autonomy and its position of siding with peace, not being neutral or indifferent, but continuing to side with peace.
Look, I'd like to point out to a facet of the visit of President Putin to India. He's a welcome guest. He's a very welcome guest, and he's going to be treated with full honors as befits the head of state of a great power. India, Russia, China, and the US are the four great powers of the world, and two of them are now meeting when President Putin comes to India and meets Prime Minister Modi. So I want to say one thing, and that is, yes, defense cooperation is important. Russians are very, very consistent in their defense equipment supply to India. They don't have the problem which you have with American equipment, that one day some sanction may come, someday some political wind may blow elsewhere, and so as a consequence, supplies are temporarily or even permanently cut off. And that is, let me emphasize the question of peace. Don't forget, in 2022 itself, when the Ukraine war started, in the first few weeks of the Ukraine war, Prime Minister Modi, in the presence of President Putin, said that this is the era of peace. It's not an era of war. So my own view is that President Putin coming will be a very good opportunity for Prime Minister to reinforce his message of peace. And I can tell you one thing very clearly. I think it's very important for Ukraine to ensure that it stops fighting, for a simple reason that, this chance of peace in 2022, there was a chance for peace. It was completely rejected by the Ukrainians because of the, persuasion of the Americans and the Europeans. Now the Americans are separate. The Europeans are the only ones who are now pushing this war. But the Prime Minister is definitely certain to mention once again, this is the era of peace. And as someone who has got high regard for Ukrainian people, I would say that the country has suffered enough as a result of this terrible conflict, and they should accept the consequences of it, and they should move on hopefully to a future of prosperity. I am very, very sure that Prime Minister Modi will be talking about peace. Yes, defense is there, no question about it. Russia cooperation technology is there, very important indeed, because technology is a key driver of modern warfare, and victory or defeat can depend on the superiority or otherwise of your technology. But one thing I can be very certain, Prime Minister Modi will either publicly or privately, reinforce his message of peace that he gave in 2022. At that point in time, the Ukrainians did not accept it. I think President Putin, in whose presence he gave it, was ready to accept it. And what has happened? Ukrainians have lost more territory. They have suffered horrible casualties. The whole world has been suffering because this Russia-Ukraine war. So I certainly hope that Ukraine grabs at the opportunity offered to it by the mediation of President Trump and opts for peace on the terms, frankly, which the ground reality will basically settle. And that reality is, very frankly, the ground reality is the Russians have only taken over more territory, that the Ukrainians have only lost territory, they've lost lives. And how many lives are going to be sacrificed for this senseless, unwinnable war on the Ukrainian side? So I want to say, I'm very sure our Prime Minister will reinforce his message of peace. I needed to say that because we've all been talking about defense and weapons and everything, but nobody is talking about that very important point made by Prime Minister Modi in the starting weeks of this horrible conflict, that this is the time of peace, the era of peace, not the era of war. And he said that in the presence of Vladimir Putin. So I am very certain that message will also be repeated and will be further reinforced by the Prime Minister. And of course, President Putin will be willing to listen to him and end the conflict on the terms that he's already obviously said, which is basically control of the Donbass. And I think, frankly, rather than have it taken away by force, it is better to cede it in a honorable manner, relatively honorable manner. And I hope and pray that this time the Prime Minister Modi's efforts at peace will succeed, although I very much doubt it, unfortunately, given the drive of Europeans to ensure, the EU, to ensure that this war continues and more Ukrainian lives, more Russian lives are sacrificed. Thank you.
Mr. Nalapat, I'll just take another short question before I let you go, and that's about the procurement of S-400s. Now, is India likely to seek negotiations on that front, given that the systems did exceedingly well in the Operation Sindoor?
Look, S-400 is a formidable defense, no question about it. I think the Russians have perfected an even better defense system, the S-500, and I'm very certain that co-production is probably something which the Russians will eventually agree to, because today Russia has very few friends left in the world who have stood by it through good times and bad times, and these are not the best of times for Russia. India is among that very small and frankly that ever shortening list of reliable friends of Russia. So I do feel that the Prime Minister is going to make a push for Make in India as well. For example, the BrahMos missile, a formidable weapon, and the missile was made jointly by Russia and by India. I think there's a lot of scope for two countries to work jointly to build up formidable weapon systems and to build up formidable new technologies that, as I said, will make all the difference between winning a war and losing a war. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Nalapat, for joining us here at News It's World and sharing your opinion. And with that, viewers, let's move on to news from Pakistan, where now we are learning that concerns over former Prime Minister Imran Khan's have been intensifying as the last 24 days have passed without any communication from the jailed leader. Despite official claims that he is in good health, Khan has been denied all court-mandated family and party meetings at Adiala jail, prompting widespread alarm. Khan's final public message has been posted on November 5 after a visit from his sister the previous day, is now under renewed scrutiny. In it, he repeatedly blamed Army Chief Asim Munir for what he called unprecedented oppression, accusing him of ordering mass crackdowns on PTI members and deliberately blocking legal hearings to keep him behind bars. Their years-long rivalry is well known, but Khan has suggested the battle has escalated far beyond personal enmity. He alleged that Pakistan's system has been reshaped to cement Munir's absolute power, noting that even court-ordered weekly meetings were denied after constitutional changes granted the army chief sweeping control and immunity. The silence has fueled fears among Khan's supporters who see ethnic and political dimensions in the confrontation, portraying Munir as threatened by the popularity of the Pathan leader. As rumors grow and the government remains tight-lipped, one question dominates Pakistan's political discourse. If Imran Khan is alive and well, why has no one heard from him in nearly a month? And we would now want to bring in Kaswar Klasra, who's the editor-in-chief at the Islamabad Telegraph in Islamabad. Thank you, Kaswar, for joining us here at NewsX World. Of course, the PTI claims that they have heard no news from Imran Khan in about a month's time. There were also reports of assault of his sisters who went to see him outside the Adiala jail. What exactly is the PTI claiming, and then what is the government's counterclaim? Do you think Asim Munir's elevation to CDF has anything to do with it?
Well, thank you for having me on the show. Let me tell you that Field Marshal Asim Munir is nothing to do with it, because it's just like a disinformation. And let me give you a clear perspective, and that is, according to my sources, he is staying inside Adiala jail. He is very well like a saddle, and he has been languishing in the jail on the court orders, because he was given sentence by the court, not by Asim Munir or the Pakistan's armed forces or even the Prime Minister of Pakistan. The Pakistani courts, let me very clear, Pakistani courts has sentenced former Prime Minister Imran Khan, and he's languishing jail on the court orders. And according to what you have rightly pointed out, during the last 3-4 days, there have been news circulating about his safety and his well-being. But the fact is that anyone, either from Imran Khan's family or the Pakistan or his party, have approached the Pakistani government or even the Adiala jail as well. It is very simple. If somebody is concerned about his health, either from his family or even from his a political party, the PTI, the rule is very simple. Just file a petition in the court and seek the clear court orders. These are the 1, 2, 3, 4 people, and we want to meet him, the former Prime Minister Imran Khan, just to make sure that how is he doing there in the jail. None from either from the family or from the Pakistan, from his party, the PTI, have approached the court. The facts are the fact. And well, I am giving you news. I am breaking a story, citing my sources that he is doing very well, and he has been meeting everybody, whoever get into the premises of the jail authorities.
How do you confirm that, Kaswar?
Sorry?
How do you confirm that he's doing well? It's only the government advisors that says that, but PTI says that they're not to be trusted at all on this.
Well, this is just disinformation. If PTI can speak to media, if PTI can hold demonstration outside the Adiala jail, then who is stopping them to file a petition in the court just to give clear orders that these are the few people, A, B, C, D, these are the people, and these want to meet Mr. Imran Khan, the former Prime Minister Imran Khan. It takes just 30 minutes to file a petition in the court to seek clear court orders to meet former Prime Minister Imran Khan. Whoever, according to my sources, whoever get into the premises of the Adiala jail in Rawalpindi, they have been meeting, and there have been meeting in the past as well. So I think this is just a tactics by Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf to put pressure on the Pakistani government and just to make the fuss out of it. And there are no credentials to the reports of Imran Khan not being into jail if something bad happened to him. According to my sources, he's doing very well. And he has been meeting his wife once in a week. I'm just breaking it, that he have been allowed to meet his wife, who's also languishing in the same jail, but in definitely in another cell as well. And he has been running, he has been walking, he has been doing exercises in the court. This is what sources told me, and I am telling you on a very good authority. He's there in the jail and he's doing very well. But if a PTA, somebody asked PTA and its workers and its the leaders, if you guys can even spend a whole night outside Adiala jail, then who is stopping you guys just to file a petition in the court and to get clear order that these are the few people, these are Mr. A, B, C, and these are the 4 people, just to pray to the court that please allow us to have a meeting with the former Prime Minister Imran Khan, because we just want to make sure he's doing very well. But none of either from the family or from the PTI have actually approached the jail authorities or the court to get clear order in this regard. I think this is just, they are just making a push, and actually they are using tactics to put pressure on the Pakistani government, and even the Pakistani government is not taking them seriously.
All right, we'll watch out for that. For now, thanks for joining us, Kasper, here at News World. And viewers, let's move on to news from Philippines. The International Criminal Court has rejected a plea to release former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte from detention. ICC appeals judges in The Hague ruled Friday that Duterte must remain in custody, dismissing a defense request that argued his age and deteriorating health warranted provisional release. Duterte, who is now 80 years old, was arrested in March and transferred to The Hague in connection with murders linked to his war on drugs. Thousands of alleged drug dealers and users were killed during the crackdown between 2016 and 2022. The ruling applies only to the health-based appeal, meaning Duterte will remain in ICC detention as he awaits a possible trial. His legal team, however, has filed multiple other motions seeking to have the case thrown out entirely. They argue his arrest was unlawful and claim the court lacks jurisdiction because the Philippines withdrew from the ICC in 2019. Jim Rice, who's professor of international law, is now joining us from Philippines, and I extend him a very warm welcome. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Rice, here on News World. What's next for this octogenarian former Prime Minister of Philippines? Is the ICC ruling valid given that Philippines made an exit from ICC, and also the fact that his lawyers are to file another plea next week?
Okay, thanks for having me on. Those are really great questions, and it was a really excellent introduction and background to the situation. In answer to your immediate question, I would just like to say that the treaty is very clear, and although the Philippines did withdraw from the ICC treaty, the provision of the treaty is that anything that occurs before remains in force. So in other words, the ICC has jurisdiction and had jurisdiction on anything that, any crimes against humanity that was perpetrated on the people of the Philippines prior to that time. So the ICC's jurisdiction is completely accurate and justified. Hello?
All right. Well, for now, I thank you for joining us here at News World. And viewers, we shift our focus to news from Sri Lanka, where authorities have deployed military troops, helicopters and navy boats to aid rescue operations after floods and landslides killed at least 56 people, with another 21 still missing. The Disaster Management Center said rainfall has intensified, with some areas receiving 360 millimeter in 24 hours. The Kalani River is expected to breach its banks near Colombo, worsening conditions. In response, India has sent emergency aid under Operation Sagar Bandhu. As Indian Prime Minister, Modi is extending his condolences to the people of Sri Lanka. The leader has further added that his country is ready to provide further aid as the situation evolves. Authorities expect flood levels to be the worst since 2016 and more rain is forecast. And now we have some breaking news coming in from Hong Kong as far as the high-rise fire is concerned. We are learning that Hong Kong's anti-corruption watchdog announced that it had arrested 8 individuals in connection with the deadly fire at a housing estate that claimed at least 128 lives. The group, which consists of 7 men and 1 woman, includes engineering consultants, scaffolding contractors and an intermediary. The Independent Commission Against Corruption has initiated an investigation into the blaze, which occurred at a residential complex undergoing renovation. And now moving on to Indonesia, where President Prabowo Subianto has announced that his government has quickly mobilized emergency assistance to North Sumatra and West Sumatra after floods and landslides hit the provinces this week, killing more than 300 people. Speaking at a National Teachers' Day event in Jakarta, the president said that officials are coordinating with local governments to speed up relief efforts, though tough terrain and bad weather have made logistics challenging. To help, 3 Hercules transport planes and 1 A400M were deployed, bringing supplies like tents, boats, generators, medicines, and ready-to-eat meals. Medical teams were also sent to support overwhelmed clinics. Prabowo emphasized that airlifts would continue as needed, with previous flights already delivering aid. He also linked the disasters to climate change and urged Indonesians to pray for the victims and strengthen solidarity during the recovery. Let's listen in to what the Indonesian president had to say.
Pemerintah bergerak cepat. Kita dari hari-hari pertama sudah bereaksi, sudah mengirim bantuan dan reaksi melalui jalur darat dan udara. Tetapi memang kondisinya sangat berat, banyak yang terputus, cuaca juga masih tidak memungkinkan. Kadang-kadang juga helikopter dan pesawat kita sulit untuk mendarat.
And that's all time we have for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.
In the midst of this, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.
Hello and welcome. I'm Sima Katauka and you're watching World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. US President Donald Trump has announced that National Guard trooper Sarah Backstrom has died after a shooting near the White House. He has said that the second soldier remains in critical condition and is fighting for his life. US President Donald Trump has announced a sweeping set of immigration proposals. He vows to permanently pause migration from all third world countries and launch what he described as reverse migration to restore order in the United States. President Trump has stated that the United States will soon begin action on land to stop suspected Venezuelan drug traffickers. They will soon expand operations beyond maritime strikes amid rising tensions and increased U.S. military deployments in the region. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has stated that Kyiv holds daily consultations with international partners to counter Russia's war. He has added that Ukrainian and U.S. delegations will meet again to advance frameworks for peace and security guarantees. The Jordanian Foreign Ministry has confirmed that 2 Jordanians were killed after being illegally recruited to fight for the Russian army, with spokesperson Fouad Majali warning that such recruitment violates Jordanian and international law. The ministry has urged citizens to report recruitment attempts, and he has called on Russia to halt Jordanian enlistments. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has criticized the Trump administration, calling it unworthy of contact or cooperation with Tehran. He has also denied rumors that Iran had sent messages to Washington. Israeli authorities review a deadly incident in Jenin, West Bank, where IDF soldiers shot 2 men following surrender. Palestine condemned the killings as war crimes. Hong Kong authorities report 79 people injured, including 12 firefighters, one seriously in a high-rise apartment complex fire in Tai Po. Rescue efforts are complete, but around 200 residents remain unaccounted for. Now we start this hour with Hong Kong. At least 128 people have died and 56 people remain hospitalized after a massive fire tore through Wang Fuk Court in Tai Po, Hong Kong. The city's anti-corruption body, the ICAC, has arrested 2 directors of Will Power Architects, bringing total arrests in connection with the tragedy to 5 people. Earlier, 3 senior staff from Prestige Construction and Engineering were arrested for alleged manslaughter after investigators found highly flammable styrofoam, stealing lift windows, and non-compliant scaffolding mesh, which allowed this fire to spread rapidly through 7 of the estate's 8 blocks. Authorities have also revealed that fire alarms in the buildings were malfunctioning, with enforcement action promised against responsible contractors. President Xi Jinping has expressed condolences, while Chief Executive John Lee Ka-chiu has ordered a full criminal investigation and inspections of all public housing renovation projects. Rescue operations continue as officials probe how substandard materials turned a renovation site into Hong Kong's deadliest fire in 7 decades. Now for this discussion, we welcome Joyita Basu. She's an editorial director at TSG, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Ms. Joyita, for joining us today. Welcome to NewsX World. What more can you tell us about this ongoing investigation and the fire that has broke out yesterday in Hong Kong?
Okay. What's happening is that, you see, I think the most important thing that one needs to realize in this case is the lack of information. I mean, we were told, I think 2 days back when the fire actually happened, that 350 people, initially the death count was given to around, I think, a few people, 10, 20 people. But we were told that 350 people were missing. And when you're talking about 350 people are missing and unaccounted for, the death count is sadly, it's a very sad incident, is bound to go up. And the problem that happens whenever it comes to China is that there's a complete opacity. There's a complete lack of information about what exactly is going on. Think of something like this, God forbid, in any other country. And what happens, it's international news. Why is it that this major accident in China has happened, and this is a huge accident and hundreds of people are likely to have died, but no one is talking about it? There is hardly any uproar in the world. I mean, there is hardly any, a chatter on in terms of I would say, the kind of irresponsibility that has led to a situation like this. There is no demand to feed, for any accountability. This reminds me of a very similar situation that took place sometime in 2022. It was, the fag end of COVID. COVID was almost over at that time. It was in Xinjiang province. There was another similar building fire that took place in the city of Urumqi. And there were primarily a lot of Uyghurs died in that fire. And there were questions about, of course, the building security and a whole lot of other things. But what happened in that case was also a complete blackout of information. So frankly, this is completely unacceptable. All that we see on social media posts is that, the Chinese embassy here, for example, they are just retweeting things like, oh, the citizens are coming out to help. But come on, what about accountability? What about exact number of death count? What exactly caused the fire? Nothing is available in the public domain. Think in terms of 2017, the Grenfell Tower fire that took place in the UK. You remember the blow by blow coverage of that happened on international media. I surprisingly, except for obviously it's good that NewsX World is picking up this topic, but beyond that, I hardly see any coverage in international media about it. There's hardly any news. There's hardly any chatter on social media. What is going on over here? Why are we giving China a free pass like this?
Yes, indeed. And to what extent should the Hong Kong government bear responsibility for ensuring proper fire safety and making sure that such incidents